I was loading our luggage into the car when my wife Jessica came downstairs with a single suitcase and an expression I'd learned to recognize over the past month. "David, I need to tell you something," she said, not meeting my eyes. "I can't go on the family vacation." Our 2 kids, Emma and Luke, were already in the car, excited about our planned week in Hawaii. They'd been talking about snorkeling and building sandcastles for months. "Emergency at work?" I asked calmly, though I already knew the real reason. "Something like that." She glanced toward the street where a silver Mercedes was parked. "I'll make it up to the kids later. You'll have to take them alone." "Actually," I said, pulling out my phone, "I don't think that's going to work out the way you're planning." What Jessica didn't know was that I discovered her affair with Marcus Webb 2 weeks ago. What she also didn't know was that Marcus was planning to fund their romantic getaway with money he'd embezzled from his accounting firm's client trust account. Most importantly, what neither of them knew was that I'd already set in motion a series of events that would turn their vacation into the worst day of their lives. Let me explain how a wife who thought she was abandoning her family for a luxury vacation became an accessory to federal embezzlement charges. My name is David Morrison, and I work as a compliance officer for a major banking institution. My job is identifying financial irregularities and working with law enforcement to investigate fraud. When I applied those same skills to my wife's sudden behavioral changes, the results were illuminating. Jessica's affair with Marcus had started 6 weeks ago at her book club meeting. Marcus was recently divorced, worked as a senior accountant at Klein & Associates, and had been aggressively pursuing Jessica despite knowing she was married with children. The red flags began when Jessica started talking about expensive dinners and weekend trips that I knew we couldn't afford on her teacher's salary. When I checked our joint account, I found no corresponding charges. Someone else was funding her new lifestyle. A little research into Marcus's financial situation revealed he was drowning in divorce settlement payments and legal fees. His ex-wife had taken half his assets, and his monthly obligations exceeded his salary by 30%. Yet somehow, he was paying for 5-star restaurants, luxury hotels, and apparently, international vacations. That's when I called my contact at the FBI's Financial Crimes Unit. Agent Sarah Chen had worked with me on 3 previous cases involving embezzlement and money laundering. When I explained the situation, she was immediately interested. "Your wife's boyfriend is funding an extravagant lifestyle on an income that can't support it," I told her. "He has access to client trust accounts, and he's about to take my wife on an expensive international vacation. I'd like to suggest we look into where that money is coming from." Agent Chen ran Marcus through the federal databases and found exactly what I'd suspected: irregularities in the client accounts he managed, suspicious transfers, and a pattern of short-term borrowing from trust funds that he'd been covering by moving money between accounts. "He's been playing shell games with client money for months," she told me. "We've been building a case, but we needed him to make a large enough expenditure to prove intent to permanently deprive. An international vacation funded by stolen money would be perfect." That's when we coordinated the timing. I canceled Jessica's airline tickets and hotel reservations 2 hours after she'd made them, using my access to her email accounts to pose as her and request full refunds. The airline and hotel complied immediately, sending confirmation emails to an account she rarely checked. Meanwhile, Agent Chen worked with Marcus's firm to document exactly which client accounts he'd been accessing and how much money he'd transferred to his personal account to fund the trip. Now I was watching Jessica walk toward Marcus's Mercedes, completely unaware that their romantic getaway had been canceled and that federal agents were waiting for them at LAX. "Daddy, where's Mommy going?" Emma asked from the back seat. "Mommy's going to take a different kind of trip," I said, starting the car. "We'll still have fun in Hawaii, just the 3 of us." My phone buzzed with a text from Agent Chen. They just left for the airport. "We're ready." I drove my children to my mother's house, where they'd stay for the weekend while I handled the aftermath of what was about to happen. I told them Mommy had a work emergency and that we'd reschedule Hawaii for next month. At exactly 3:47 p.m., my phone rang. Jessica's number. "David," her voice was panicked, hysterical. "Something's wrong at the airport. They're saying my tickets don't exist. The hotel has no record of our reservation. Marcus is freaking out because his credit cards aren't working." "That sounds stressful," I replied calmly. "The airline is saying someone canceled everything this morning. Did you do something?" "I protected our family's interests, yes." Before she could respond, I heard shouting in the background. Male voices, official-sounding commands. "Ma'am, step away from Mr. Webb," a voice said clearly through the phone. "FBI. Mr. Webb, you're under arrest for embezzlement and wire fraud." The line went quiet except for the sound of Jessica screaming Marcus's name. Agent Chen called me 20 minutes later. "Clean arrest," she reported. Webb had $43,000 in stolen client money in various accounts, all traceable. He was planning to use it to fund a 10-day European vacation with your wife. What about Jessica? She's not being charged. She appears to have been unaware of the source of the funds, though she'll need to provide testimony about his expenditures during their relationship. How long will Marcus be looking at? Wire fraud, embezzlement, money laundering across state lines? 15 to 20 years, minimum. Jessica came home 4 hours later, devastated and alone. Marcus was in federal custody, his assets frozen, his passport confiscated. Their romantic vacation had become a federal case study in white-collar crime. "You knew," she said, standing in our living room with her single suitcase. "You knew he was stealing money." "I suspected financial irregularities and reported them to the appropriate authorities," I corrected. "It's what compliance officers do." "You destroyed my relationship." "Your relationship was funded by stolen money from retirees and small business owners. I stopped a crime in progress. What am I supposed to do now?" "You could start by explaining to Emma and Luke why Mommy tried to abandon them for a vacation funded by stolen money." She sat down heavily, the reality of her situation finally settling in. "The divorce papers are on the kitchen counter," I added. "My attorney filed them this morning. You'll want to get your own lawyer, one who specializes in cases involving federal investigations." "You planned all of this?" "I identified a crime and reported it. The planning was entirely Marcus's. He just wasn't very good at it." Jessica signed the divorce papers that evening. She didn't have much choice. Adultery with someone under federal indictment isn't a strong negotiating position. Marcus was sentenced to 18 years in federal prison. His accounting license was revoked, his remaining assets were seized for restitution, and his ex-wife filed additional civil suits for the increased embarrassment to their children. Sometimes the most satisfying revenge isn't something you do to someone who betrays you. Sometimes it's simply ensuring their crimes catch up with them at the worst possible moment. Jessica wanted to abandon our family for luxury and excitement. She got federal testimony and a front-row seat to her lover's arrest instead.